Ah, fruit. Oof. I say to myself, Murray, you can't have too much of a good thing. That's why I love this. New recipe ski fruit. Smooth, delicious, low-fat yoghurt with 25% more fruit. Or as my old mum would say... Nobody argues with my mum. Ski fruit. Do one today.
Good evening. Well, there'll certainly be rain for most of us at some stage or other this week. That's very much the case tonight for northern parts, dry in the south, but cloudy with it. So let's follow the progress of this rain as we go into tomorrow, starting off with the Northern Ireland as well as Scotland, some fairly hefty bursts from time to time. To the south of that, dry with a glimmer of brightness in the southeast. To the north, certainly bright, but a good peppering of showers as well. Come around about lunchtime, well, northern parts sort of dry off, but we see that rain sinking into North Wales, getting into the Midlands, as well as the far southwest, and again some fairly heavy bursts. At this stage, the southeast just hanging on to that dry weather. Not for long, though. By the end of the day, the rain will be into the southeast, the brighter weather following on behind, and the southwest seeing a couple of showers show up as well. By tomorrow night, though, rain into Southern Ireland, heralding even more to come, I'm afraid. These are the sorts of temperatures we can expect tomorrow, generally speaking, held at around about 16 to 19. If you prefer those in Fahrenheit, that's 61 to 66, but windy with it. 21 in the brighter slots, that's 70 Fahrenheit. And that's all from me for today. Good night.
Sponsored by PowerGen, a partner in Kinetica Natural Gas.
There's a time to work, and there's a time to play. And for his sake, let's hope that this is the time to play. But disaster can strike at any time.
What's happened to me, Dad?
We've just got stuck inside the drum. Don't worry, we'll get him out.
It's the fire brigade, Mr. Coyne. Can you hear me?
London's Burning, Friday at 9 on Central.
Later on Friday, see the magic behind one of the greatest movies of recent times, the making of Dances with Wolves, at 10:40.
Good evening. Now the latest from Central in the East Midlands. A 12-year-old girl who says she's afraid to go to school with boys has won her fight to go to a single-sex school. The girl has been studying at home for the last 9 months. Now the council has found her a place and called off a prosecution against her parents. Friends of the family describe the decision as a victory for common sense. Sheila Dadri reports.
Fatima Patel from Leicester was turned down by the Education Department for a place at the all-girls Sir Jonathan North School. They said no places were available. Leicestershire County Council then prosecuted her parents, Mohammed and Aisha Patel, for failing to register Fatima at her local school. The authority decided not to carry out the court action today when, by coincidence, a place became available at the single-sex school. Friends of the family said it was a welcome climb down by the council and a victory for common sense.
Health workers at one of the country's top heart hospitals fear they could lose their jobs as management strive to make big savings. The hospital is run as a trust and, under the government's reforms, has control over its budget. But a report has predicted that the hospital is on target to overspend by £750,000. Mike Dolan reports.
Staff at Glenfield Hospital in Leicester met union officials to voice their fears over possible cutbacks. Their leaders claim morale is low because the management is looking at ways of saving money. They say the workforce is worried about possible job losses. It follows a report which predicted the hospital would overspend its budget by £750,000 unless savings are made.
It's the result of the reforms which has led to this crazy situation. I mean, we are still meant to be a caring service. But obviously people do feel, despite that, that it's becoming much more of a competitive market, which is certainly true.
We have to live within the amount of money that we receive as income, like you and I do as householders managing our own budget. So though that was the reason behind taking the measures that we had to do.
15 managers' positions are to go. Hospital officials say if more redundancies are necessary, it will only involve a small number of people. But workers and their union leaders refuse to accept their assurances and fear they may pay the price for management inability to win health service contracts for the hospital.
A police force is claiming a major success in beating the burglar after a special 3-month crackdown. 400 offenders have been arrested and the number of house break-ins has been reduced by a third. Detectives say it's now the turn of the criminal to feel frightened. Nick Kehoe has the details.
A dawn raid and the first wave of suspected offenders feel the full weight of the police crackdown on burglary, codenamed Operation Bumblebee. It's been a spectacular success since it was introduced by Derbyshire Police. In January this year, before the crackdown, there were 618 burglaries in Derby. During May, after the introduction of Bumblebee, the figure was down to 416, a reduction of nearly a third.
We've been looking at crime analysis, so we can actually target our resources, our uniform resources, actually to preventing burglary. So again, people are aware that police officers are out and about there, they are checking people, they are keeping an eye on premises, vulnerable premises and vulnerable areas to try and reduce the risk of burglary.
The crackdown has led to 400 arrests. Many of the suspected burglars have been remanded in custody, reducing the risk of re-offending.
What we want to do is transfer the fear of crime actually from the victim, if you like, to the offender, so that if he thinks he's going to go out and get away with committing a burglary, then he's going to get a knock on his door the following day or the following month when we come out and arrest those people.
Now Derbyshire Police want to expand Operation Bumblebee to cover the rest of the county. Other police forces in the region are looking on with interest.
A blind 2-year-old girl is recovering in Baltimore in America after undergoing surgery which could give her sight for the first time in her life. Surgeons say the operation went well, but it's too early to say if she'll be able to see. Melissa Cox from Peterborough was born 16 weeks premature. She weighed just over a pound. Her parents were told she'd be blind for the rest of her life. But then by chance they read a second-hand book which covered her condition, and so they flew out to America, the only place offering treatment. Surgeons have carried out a series of operations on Melissa's eyes, and they say that although there are no guarantees, everything went as well as expected. Her grandparents who live in Newark gave their reaction.
Yeah, a lot of it is guesswork at the moment. We've just got to bear with it. It's a little bit, upsetting in one respect, but in others we're delighted that yes, age has been given that chance of getting sight or some sight of some sort, we hope.
Blind, you don't see anything. You never see your parents, you never see. Maybe she thinks, what do they look like? Fine, we don't want that. But no beauty, no country, no flowers, just touching grass, path. Sometimes your heart breaks, but you don't show it.
Melissa's parents say they'll be happy if she can just make out shapes or even tell the difference between night and day. All they can do now is wait and hope. National park officials have issued a fire alert because the recent spell of fine weather has left hundreds of square miles of moorland tinder dry. Warning signs are being put up in the Derbyshire Peak District by rangers, gamekeepers and National Trust wardens in an effort to protect some of the country's most popular walking areas. Several small grass fires have already been reported, and visitors are being urged to take extra care with matches and cigarette ends. Meanwhile, a veteran countryside campaigner is to mark the official opening of a new walk. It'll stretch more than 200 miles along the length of Britain, including some spectacular scenery in the Peak District. Dominic Hill reports.
Benny Rothman has devoted his life to campaigning for greater access to the countryside. There are now 4,000 miles of public walks in the Peaks. 60 years ago there were none. Benny and his followers helped change the laws which meant these areas were once the preserve of the rich. Now a new walkway is to be opened called the Midshires Way. It'll link a 70-mile section through Derbyshire with a route that extends from Buckinghamshire in the south to the Pennines in the north. It's intended for recreational pursuits. Countryside organisations insist it will allow recreational activities to thrive in an area renowned for its beauty and its wildlife.
2 women are offering a new future for unwanted pets. There's just one rule: they must be exotic. They say their rescue service is needed because so many unusual animals aren't being properly cared for. A report from Brian Collins.
A 12-foot Indian rock python is persuaded out into the light so that Derby Rescue Service experts Mari Crawford and Sandra Partington can check it over. It's one of dozens of creatures that have been saved from owners who don't know how to care for them or who have lost interest.
They just go into it with their eyes shut, and it seems like a good idea at the time. They buy these things. They don't do the research into proper diet and equipment. And then when they find something goes wrong, they dump it.
The latest arrival is William the boa constrictor.
His nose was very badly burnt. He was in a terrible state. It took me, about 3/4 of an hour to actually scrape all the dirt off the bottom of the cage because he'd just been totally neglected. He'd got a little tiny water bowl that was about 3 inches across. He's now got one that's sort of like this.
They all get the best of care from the rescue service. The only creature missing out on its favourite delicacies is the python, which is partial to the occasional antelope.
Football now, and Nottingham Forest manager Frank Clark is hoping to beat off any late challengers for the capture of Dutch star Brian Roy. Although the signing is nearly complete, he fears that if Roy performs well in the World Cup, he could attract the unwanted attention of some of the world's glamour clubs. Dennis Coath reports.
Frank Clark may fly out to the States later this week if he can conclude the transfer of Dutch international winger Brian Roy. Roy came to the City Ground a fortnight ago and indicated that he'd like to join Forest. Clark is waiting for the green light from Roy's Italian club Foggia, signalling that all the proposals are agreed for the £2.5 million deal. It'll be the transfer coup of the summer if they complete the business. Frank Clark's biggest fear is that Roy impresses representatives of other big European clubs in his performances for Holland in the World Cup. They play their opening game tonight against Saudi Arabia, with Roy in his usual left-wing position.
And that's the news from us so far. We're back at 6:15 tomorrow morning. Join us if you can. In the meantime, a very good night.
Central Weather, sponsored by Legal & General.
Hi there, summer should be back for Thursday. Until then, some fairly iffy weather, I'm afraid. We're just about to see this cold front from close quarters. You can see the cloud ahead of it, just getting into Ireland there. That cloud will be getting to us through the early hours, with the rain, which is at the back end of that cloud, getting here for tomorrow. Not much to look forward to tomorrow. Have a look at the pictures in a tick. Here's how the rest of the night looks then. Not really much happening until the early hours, and we'll start to see that thicker cloud coming into the west, just bringing some light rain for the higher ground later, really. The wind's starting to freshen up, though, as that lock comes in. It heralds the arrival of the rain tomorrow. Now, the front is crossing the middle of the UK, so the north of our region is going to be where most of our rain is, and it'll be quite heavy over the hills up there as well. The odd outbreak of drizzly rain elsewhere, and not really much in the way of brightness around tomorrow. And although temperatures only getting as high as about 68, it's pretty moist air this lot. It'll feel quite humid. If you're off on your travels for tomorrow, take a brolly if you're going up north. The wettest weather from that front will be for Lancashire and Yorkshire. The best of the weather in Scotland and Northern Ireland, if you can get that far that quick. And then OK weather for the southeast. Wimbledon looks like staying dry. Then for Wednesday, this rain turns around and moves south. Not really affecting us too much, but quite a damp day for East Anglia and the southeast of England. For us, plenty of cloud around again. The odd bright spell, but nothing really special. The best of Wednesday's weather to be found from the Pennines upwards. It's going to be humid again everywhere on Wednesday, but at least the temperatures will be starting to rise in readiness for some good sunshine, hopefully, to finish the week off with. That's the state of play for us over the next few hours. Emma's back tomorrow. She'll keep you posted on that sunshine. She'll be back for Thursday. See you soon. Bye-bye.
He's been branded the dad from hell. He's driven his daughter from Wimbledon.
Tomorrow, live from Miami, GMTV talks to Jim Pierce, father of tennis star Mary Pierce. And after last year's savage attack on Monica Seles, we'll be asking live from Wimbledon if the players are in safe hands. That's tomorrow on GMTV.
Holland embark on their World Cup campaign. They play Saudi Arabia in a Group F match. We've the live action on Central at 11:40.
My lord, in the matters of Stephanie Coleman and Her Majesty, the Crown is prepared at this time to make its opening address. Over the past few months, you may have read or heard how a psychic vision led Stephanie Coleman to her husband's body. You may even have arrived at certain conclusions. The oath you took as jurors requires that you put these aside. The verdict you arrive at must be based on the evidence presented in this courtroom and nothing else. The evidence called by the Crown will show that the defendant was not in love with her husband. She was, in fact, having an affair with her husband's own brother. It will be shown that the defendant's husband was seeking a divorce, and she was the sole beneficiary of her husband's life insurance policy. And when she couldn't collect on this insurance policy because there was no body, she led the police directly to the murdered body of her husband, claiming she had seen it in a vision.
They're going to convict me.
They will if you don't control your outburst.
There's something awful in that courtroom. I don't know what it is.
Well, turn it off and let me do my job.
I can't.
Do you want to spend the next 25 years of your life in jail? Are you listening to me? Stephanie? What's going on? What is it?
I don't know. I don't know what it is. Incredibly tense yesterday in the washroom. It made a chill go up and down my spine.
You think she was putting on an act, or was she really having a psychic experience?
I'm trying to play down the psychic angle.
Why? The fact is, she led the police directly to her husband's body. Sooner or later, you're going to have to explain that.
All I have to do is raise a reasonable doubt that she killed her husband. And I can do that by blowing holes through the Crown's case.
The jury is still going to want to hear about her vision firsthand.
They will. But first they have to trust her and not be afraid of her.
Hi, guys. Hi there.
You left your briefcase at home, so I put it in my car. You left in such a hurry this morning.
Ah, thanks.
How's Adam?
He's fine. He's terrorizing the nurses on the ward. He should be able to go home at the end of the week.
Back to Australia?
Yeah, back to the land down under. He's a real tiger.
Must be that Armenian stock.
Yeah, must be.